Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back on this happy Friday to another episode of Military Money Mistakes Live. I'm Trevor Maxwell, creator of Military Money Mistakes Live, and glad to be here today and talk to everybody again. To appreciate everybody who's been involved with supporting us, and looking forward to continue to reach out and talk to people about a lot of the issues that are facing the personal finance issues that a lot of folks are facing out there. And today was a big one. I think an important one. Um, there's a an article that I had put out on Tuesday where we talked about the Congressional Budget Office uh, was reviewing some different ways of cutting spending. We'll get into that. Before we start getting into the meat and potatoes of this, just wanted to put an update out there. If you are interested in participating right now, we're getting into the beta cohort. I think we're about a quarter of the way, third of the way through. But we are still looking for some folks who do want to participate in the next cohort. So if that's you, if you are interested in checking it out, I'm going to put the link to that to get in here in the comments section. And let me do this real quick. So that's the link to join our insiders portal. You can get in there and go sign up. Hit me up for a call to join the next group of military money mistakes coaching cohort. You can also visit the website there. That's the web address, militaryretirementblueprint.com. Go in there. We got a ton of information, especially with the survivor benefit plan open season. That's kind of a big topic right now, and we're really digging into that to make sure that people are able to take advantage of it. If you are considering that, I would recommend you do it sooner rather than later, just because there is a time limit on this stuff. January 1st, 2024, the open season is closed. If you are looking at whether you're opting out, if you're opting in, or especially if you're opting out, obviously, you want to have something in place to, to replace that. So we got all kinds of stuff in there, things that you might want to take into consideration before making a decision. So check that out. And now on to the topic of today. Was it December 7th of 2022? The Congressional Budget Office released a report where they were looking at options for how do we cut spending in order to basically bolster some of Social Security, because I know you've probably heard me talk about this before. Right now they're estimating somewhere around early 2030s, they're going to have to reduce Social Security benefits. The reason for that is because the tax revenue that they bring in every year can only fund about 75% of the Social Security obligations in any given year. So what they did years ago was they had a Social Security trust that was established that would produce extra funding. So basically, if they could only meet 75%, they could take some money out of this trust and fund the rest of the benefits. Well, when you look at a lot of the statistics around this, the baby boomer generation, they're retiring at a rate of 10,000 a day. There's more and more people drawing benefits, and they're draining the trust. So eventually what's going to happen, the trust runs out. Well, now we can only fund 75% of that. So they're already looking at, one of two things is going to have to happen. We're going to have to cut spending, or we're going to have to increase taxes, increase revenues, so that we can ensure that these programs stay in effect. But anyways, this article, what they were looking at was they were reviewing some of these other programs. Where are we spending a lot of money where we could potentially make some cuts in order to free up funds to bolster some of those other programs like Social Security and Medicare. COVID didn't help either. There was a lot of temporary programs that were established that were quote unquote, part of what they call mandatory spending. That's money that they have to spend. Social Security is part of that. Military retire, federal employee pensions, benefits from survivor benefit plans, VA disability. Those are all mandatory spending programs. What they looked at was they said, well, okay, we're going to look at some options for how do we reduce spending on programs that aren't supported by trust funds, kind of like Social Security is. One of the big ones that they looked at where they're spending a lot of money is VA disability compensation. And so the proposal itself was, hey, what if we put, apply a means testing to VA disability compensation to where if a veteran's household is making above a certain amount every year, which, and if you look in the literature, it said any veteran households making between $125,000 a year and $170,000 a year, there would be a phase out where we'd start to reduce the VA disability income based on how much money you made in that range. So they had a phase out range. And then essentially, if your household made over 170K for that year, you wouldn't receive any VA disability that next year. So based off their numbers, it looked like that would result in something like over 1 million people losing their VA disability compensation. And almost 500,000 people would receive reduced benefits. Part of the history that they talk about was, their contention was back when all this stuff happened in 1945, a lot of these jobs were manual labor jobs. People were coming back from World War II, going to work in factories, things like that. And maybe as a result of some of these disabilities that were sustained in combat, they wouldn't be able to do those jobs. Today, obviously, the workforce is a lot different. There's not a whole lot of manufacturing jobs. There's, despite the fact that there's a significant lack of, there's a lot of vacancies in trades and the trades out there in the workforce right now. Believe it or not, there's not a lot of manual labor, which is surprising to me because those are actually some really good jobs. And if you had good business sense, you could go into business for yourself and do very well for yourself, be your own boss, have a trade that you can use and make a lot of money doing it. But essentially now a lot of the workforce is people working online, people going and working in technology companies and things like that, to where, yes, you can be 100% permanent and total disabled like me, but you can still go out and do a job and make money. It's not like being in a factory and having to manufacture things where under the old criteria that it was established. Kind of like how under Social Security, when that was established, there was something like 43 people paying into it for every one person collecting benefits. Whereas now I think we're at about 3 people paying into it for every one person collecting benefits. And, back then, I think the age, what was it? I think the life expectancy was something like 62. Or what they don't understand is like people were still living to be old back in those days. It's just the reason life expectancy has increased so much over the last 7 or 8 decades is because infant mortality rates have increased significantly. That's why the life expectancy has gone up from 62 or 63 to 78, or at least a significant portion of it is due to increase in infant mortality rates. So, what do we look at, right? Some of the arguments that they were making in support of this, they say, hey, in 2021, the VA paid out 4 times the amount of VA disability compensation that it did in 2000. And that's after removing the effects of inflation. And then they talked about this too. They said the spending per participant rose from $11,000 per participant to over $22,000 per participant. And so I'm sitting here reading this, so they're talking about like this increase in like how these all of these numbers have gone up. And I'm sitting there thinking like, man, that's weird. I wonder if there's something that happened in between those 2 time frames that would have increased the the amount of VA disability that they're paying out and the amount per person that they're paying out too. Like, can you guys think of any significant events that may have occurred in that time frame that would cause that to happen? Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the majority of my adulthood was in that time, and that's a lot of the stuff that happened to me and a lot of other folks. Of course, there was. We were just in a 20-year war. Thousands of people were killed, and millions received, some kind of people that served in a combat zone received all kinds of the injuries, wounds, uh, maybe not just physically, but mentally as well. And so, yeah, that might explain a little bit of that. And now these people are talking about this as an option to cut that. Are they really going to consider reneging on this deal that they made with us? Especially when you consider their current state of recruiting right now is already in the toilet. I couldn't imagine what bad press would come from that. So, if you keep reading, they do go on to address some of the other issues and solutions, and they talk about, hey, obviously these people are receiving this compensation, or probably in some form, shape, or form, experiencing some diminished quality of life. That's another consideration. And I was glad to see that, obviously these reports, if you understand these, because I've read a bunch of these, they're coming up with options. They're saying like, hey, if we did this, here's what but that's like numbers on a spreadsheet type of solution. They do go on to address there's a more human component to this as well, to take into consideration and understand like, hey, these people are getting paid this stuff because they went over there and did a very difficult and dangerous job supporting a war that our country got us into, or, obviously we were drawn into it. We didn't just go over there and start doing it. But these people chose to serve, and they received injuries, wounds, all kinds of stuff as a result of their service. And so, yeah, there's that component to take into consideration as well. It's not just a numbers game. They had talked about also maybe we grandfather this in, like in the future, like everybody who's already collecting VA disability, maybe we don't adjust their disability. Maybe we do that for future generations of veterans, which brings up something else that I've talked about a lot. As we've seen time go on, not just in the military or the government workforces, but in the civilian workforce too, there's more and more of a bigger push for individuals to take on more responsibility with funding their own retirement. And I say that because, especially even as it applies to VA disability income, because if you get that, guess what? That's going to be with you for the rest of your life. It doesn't go away. That's part of you funding your retirement. If they start reducing that, they've already done it with the pension under the blended retirement system. They're saying, hey, we're going to reduce your pension, but we're going to give you the match, right? So they're putting more of the onus on you as the individual to continue to fund your own retirement. Same looks like they may be exploring options for doing that with VA disability as well, so that they can support some of these other programs that are considered mandatory spending. And they did talk about, hey, there's other programs that we can reduce as well. Kind of my thoughts about this. Do I think this is going to happen? I couldn't see it happening, at least not before this next election, because you look at either side of the aisle. One side is the side that's for the troops, and the other side already has a bad enough reputation with the military as it starts. Like, they can't afford to make it even any worse. So I absolutely don't see anything like that happening, at least not, this election cycle in the future. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I think that's a political landmine. They even say that Social Security is the third rail of politics. I couldn't imagine anybody doing that and not receiving a significant backlash for, as all politicians do, the virtue signaling. Oh, you don't support the troops. So it was a proposal for a solution. I don't think that it's really going to happen, but I still think it's important for people to bring this up because, we can't just sit there and assume that it's not going to happen. Part of that is onus on us to go talk to our elected officials and say, hey, what is this like? Do you support that? And get the word out there, put the pressure on them to make sure that doesn't happen. Just as we're, assuming more responsibility for taking care of our own retirements, well, we have to assume a little bit of responsibility on this. So, at a minimum, I would encourage you to read through the entire article, get smart on it, reach out to your representatives, try to get some feedback on that, and find out where that stands. So, just wanted to cover that today because I had put that out there, and I know that a lot of people had seen it, that had gotten reshared a lot and, reviewed by a bunch of people. I think it's an important topic. And again, I will keep pounding that nail in, like, yeah, if we just assume that something is going to happen, or something is not going to happen, well, that's probably the worst thing that we could do, right? We want to stay on top of that and make sure it doesn't happen. So, one last reminder about the portal. Make sure you go check that out. MilitaryRetirementBlueprint.com. We're working on all kinds of stuff around the Survivor Benefit Plan open season. And the goal there is really to help you make a truly well-informed decision, because I think just going, Scott Tucker mentioned this. Greg Lee, somebody who's been a friend of us, U.S. Vet Wealth, for quite some time. That's where I saw the article initially, and I thought, man, I need to talk about this. And so, thank you, Greg, for putting that out to us. But again, too, check us out on the portal. Come visit us. There's a chance if you have questions or you need more information, there's the opportunity in there for you to reach out to one of us and pick our brains and figure out, what's the best. Hopefully we've given you enough information inside there to make a decision as to whether or not it's the right way for you. And if there is, we can absolutely help with that. So check it out. Again, too, if you're interested in joining the beta cohort, hit me up. I will put a link in here if you want to give me a call, set up a call with me and join a pilot cohort. We'll do that. Scott's looking for new ideas for the SBB book title. If you have Scott, do you have a link you can post in there for anybody that wants to participate in that? All right. Well, I don't see it in there yet, but he can still come in and drop that link in there after this is done, and we'll continue to share that stuff too. So next week I will be at a retirement ceremony. I'd hoped to go to Florida for one, but I couldn't make it. So I'm going to another one for another good friend of mine. I've got them next couple weeks. So there you go. Scott posted that. Click on that link if you want to look at the survey and help us name the next book. And but yeah, the next couple of weeks I'll be at retirement ceremonies. I'm taking off all day to that to go, celebrate other folks' careers who have done it for quite a long time, and go see all my old buddies and stuff. So we'll have pre-recorded shows next week. I'm going to talk about why it's important to file your VA disability claim. So appreciate everybody coming in, checking this out, and I'll look forward to hopefully. Well, I won't see you next week because it'll be pre-recorded, but hopefully you'll look forward to seeing me next week. So take care, everyone.